Often the human mind is confronted with some of these questions, but I don't know whether that is relevant. Anyhow, I will put one or two points before you so that you may have a correct outlook on the process of yoga which you want people to attempt. The, the problem sometimes is put like this, that there is a truth at work, and there is in that truth there is perfection, there is everything that is ideal is there, and a world which is not ideal, that is practical experience, so that doesn't require any proof, it is self-evident. Now what is the relation between the two? That is how many outlooks have been developed on this problem. Some have always posited that there is always a permanent opposition between the two. This is the world here, and something which may be the cause of the world, if you admit it, but that world and this world, there is between them no relation. That is one, a permanent opposition. There is sometimes a relation admitted, but a temporary one, partial one, and therefore the solution suggested is an ultimate escape out of this impermanence of life or suffering, pain and ignorance and conflict. One finds himself confronted in life, is asked to get out of this whole difficulty. You see, the problem suggested is an escape. It is possible to take this attitude. In fact, people have taken, and great figures have taken this attitude of a permanent escape as a solution of the difficulty with man is confronted all throughout, and today now more acutely. That would necessitate two assumptions. One, that which is permanent or source of the difficulty here, an imperfect world, lacks in its capacity to maintain this universe and lead it to perfection. One. And secondly, it also means that the laws that obtain here are permanent and eternal. Whatever we are passing through in this world is now subjected to eternal. There is an eternal equation at work, and laws are operating, and there is no possibility of changing these laws. That is to say, is there therefore a permanent opposition between eternal truth and a manifesting or changing or temporary or passing or conflicting and subject to ignorance, a universe which is subject to ignorance and impermanence and difficulty and suffering, is the relation of a permanent opposition. That would be that the world is bound to the laws that obtain now. The laws are permanent. Well, that would be contradictory to all the things that we have been talking about, because we have tried to see the growth of this universe from a fundamental and starting in conscience. And we saw that this inconscience is only apparent inconscience. This apparent inconscience is the repository of all that evolved subsequently during the millenniums that have passed, giving rise gradually, petal by petal, if you like, point by point, or plane by plane, giving rise to a decreasing degree of inconscience or inertia and an increasing degree of consciousness and light. That is what we have seen the process as we could study with our mind and sense. We have not got into the knowledge of the thing in the sense of knowledge by identity, but we have known it by our mind that it is gradually increasing the area of light, so to say, of consciousness. The growth, the decreasing of inertia is taking place, and consciousness is slowly disappearing, and more light is manifesting in the universal manifestation. Therefore, it looks to us that it's an evolutionary universe. And in an evolutionary universe, then you cannot have fixed formula of laws permanently fixed forever and forever. It could not be. It should be always a changing equation, because the entity that is at work, human being now, being the last term of evolution at which we stand, it is not last in the sense of being a full point of a process. It is lost in the sense of being the topmost at present, but it is a movement. It is not as if we are dealing with a completed movement and say, now the whole thing is finished, what more can be done? You see, man is a transitional being. The process is at work. It is as it were a cauldron was boiling, and we are examining the content of the cauldron that is boiling with our mind. We being ourselves also within the cauldron. Remember, we are not outside the cauldron, but we have capacity which goes outside and looks at it and says, yes. Now, how far has the process come? It is not at all completed. We are being subjected to the process. Then we realize that yes, it is an equation that is changing. If on this side, if x is equal to y, then you say if x is changeable, then the value of y also must change. You cannot permanently say that man now is subject to his body consciousness, his desire self, or his egoistic movement, or his mental limitation of his mind, and so on. When we admit and see by experience that is so. Well, if that remains fixed, then you can say, well, what happens to him also will remain fixed. But if he changes, then naturally the nature of life, nature of manifestation will change. If the consciousness of man undergoes a change, well, there will be a change in the manifestation of the universe or the world. So that now the character of the world is a character of impermanence, ignorance, conflict, suffering, and so on. But if the consciousness changes, then the manifestation will be of a harmony, peace, a consciousness, light, and a sort of a symphony which can be seen at work, which is a work of a self-existent love and delight. It is not an impossibility. It may be a distant realization or a goal, but it cannot be logically put down as if it was an impossibility to conceive. Well, the great lights have said like that you see, it is like what you have to do is to put the hook in the ignorance and pull out the individual and throw him into the nirvana, or throw him into the laya of laya moksha. You see, well, that could not have been the solution of the problem. This comes out of our feeling that the opposition which we find in life, and the dualities that we meet in life, its fundamental nature is that of opposition. Now, that is not quite true. With regard to the reality, the relation of the duality is that of a process. Dualities that we find in nature, and we find they are opposed so far as our mind can see. But from the point of view of the reality, the permanent, the eternal that is at work, the dualities are not an opposition. Duality are admitted by the Supreme as a process, by the permanent as a process, a necessity, something that has to be in order to bring out a certain result. So that the relation between the duality is not that of a permanent opposition, but a admission or necessity of a process. Duality is a process necessary for growth in an evolutionary movement of an ignorant consciousness subject to body, to limitation of desire, limitation, action of ego. It must be faced with this opposition in order to go beyond itself. To exceed the present formula, this duality is a necessity of the process. That is how one has to look at the problem of duality. Duality is not to be admitted as a permanent element of universe in which an omnipotence has found itself unable to make any change. That would be the logical consequence. If we admit this as a permanent condition, then an omniscience or omnipotence being at work, it has now found that it is impossible to change a certain condition which it has brought about, which does not seem to be logically correct. The relation of the opposition is that of a process and a necessary movement in order to enable the evolutionary soul or evolutionary movement to release itself into a permanent light or into a truth consciousness. It could not do it unless it was made to undergo this process of opposition and a necessity of making a choice. One is confronted with making a choice, and that gives it a chance of evolution. That is one point that I wanted to stress this morning. Second point that I wanted to bring out was that this evolution has, I brought about one line, but the second line I would like to stress this morning. One line was inconscience to matter, matter to life, life to mind. That is how universal energy seems to have proceeded from fundamental inconscience, apparent inconscience, but it is, as it were, a substratum or a content hiding within itself an infinite content of potentialities. You see, inconscience looks as if it is inert, but in its inertness, it hides the whole content of an infinite potentiality. It releases one by one. So, as the process proceeds, we find the first step, matter. After multi-million years, you come to another stage, life. Third, you come to mind. Then you say, yes, now the whole process has from apparent inconscience to an increasing degree of mind. Now, second line also evolution has proceeded upon, and that is the finding of or discovery of occult forces of nature, even of matter itself. First, from inconscience to matter, to life to mind. Yes, this mind has again taken up the work of taking the evolution a step further by sounding the occult possibilities of the whole universe, including matter. So that it said, well, let me find out what matter is. And it has churned matter, so to say, and found infinite possibility or potentialities of matter. This accompanied with man's or mind's or spirit of man sounding the possibility of occult life on the plane of life plane, on the plane of mind, thought transference, telepathy, or control of mind, or the doctors performing operation under hypnosis. Is it not nowadays? In London, they're actually doing it on a government scale. So it's not as if it was something superstitious and make believe. Actually, hospital people are allowed, and a doctor is called in to hypnotize the patient, and the patient remains completely conscious without any anesthesis, and operation is done. So that sounding the possibilities of nature and the spirit of man. That is also another line of evolution. The cosmic line of evolution has proceeded along three big steps: matter, life, and mind. And this mind has again sounded the possibilities of matter and life and mind on its own level, and has come to realize many occult powers. You see, the scientific process itself is an occult process. It is occult in the sense that everybody cannot know it unless you undergo a training. You can say scientific truth is applicable to life, and that way it may be available to all, but the knowledge of it requires a specialization. You have to go through a process, admit certain assumptions, make experiments, come to conclusions, and it is as it were you are sounding the possibilities of something that was occult. In fact, matter is occult. We don't know what it is even now. As I told you, no scientist knows what is matter or material energy. He deals with the processes, and it is good that he deals with it because he finds out the potentialities that are hidden in what is evolved up till now. So that is the second line. And this discovery of occult powers hidden in the depths of the material inconscience, behind life, apparent movement of life, you see, a projection of will or governance of life by a powerful impulse or willpower, or thought transference or telepathy or hypnotism. Now they are soundings of man's spirit by the mind or spirit of man that has evolved. He is sounding the potentialities of nature and of the spirit. In this sounding of possibilities and potentialities of the inner substance of what has evolved, matter and life and mind, some cultures have gone deepest and made profound discoveries. India is one of them. Atlantis, they say, had made great discoveries. Egypt at one time, 5,000 years back, had a tremendous secret of occult forces which are visible in its symbols even now. You see, Isis unveiled, and the symbol of the sun and the cat, and so many things which you see in Egyptian culture now are remnants of perhaps a culture that sounded effectively the secrets of vital occult life of man and went to very great depths. Well, India sounded the potentiality of the human spirit as manifested in the universe. And she came to certain conclusions which are important for man, because the possibilities of the spirit are the highest and the most important discoveries for man's future growth. But what is at work? Well, not only life. What is at work? Not only mind. What is at work? Not only matter. It answers fundamentally it's a spirit at work. It's a divine potentiality at work, because the divine reality has taken a plunge into the inconscious. That is to say, there has been an involution, and we are now witnessing or passing through a process of evolution. A reality has assumed, it has put on a mask of inconscience here, and that mask is gradually revealing what it has hidden within itself. That is one thing it says. And secondly, that the process is not yet ended, that it has to go forward. This is the great contribution of Sri Aurobindo to modern thinking, that the evolutionary movement of universal nature has not attained its highest point when it has reached intelligence or mental consciousness. That this is a process yet intended to go forward, because all the characteristics of mental consciousness point to its imperfection, point to its necessity of going beyond the present attained formula of man's capacities. There are already known instances, powers known to man in his mind, in his life, and in his physical consciousness, which point to an occult source. One. And there are instances of great individuals, lights, that have brought the light of the spirit into body, into mind, into life, into emotional being of man, showing that a higher reach is possible. Coming of a Gautam Buddha or a Christ or Krishna or Ramakrishna or anybody like Sri Aurobindo is a sign of human future possibility. There are types of the future, as I told you in the second or first day. They are not exception, to be looked upon as samples of a museum. You see, they are samples to be looked upon as people who are types to be followed, and one day the truths which they have given has to become common to all. That is how it always happens. Even in material science, I pointed out that day that when motor car was first constructed by founding the possibility of petrol or the gasoline, well, then very few people could take advantage of it. It was a rarity at one time, and now something else is a rarity in the world of physical science, because it costs a lot. First of all, apart from other secret processes which you must know and which perhaps a government also would like to control. You see, atom fissioning would not be allowed to be public, perhaps. Now government would say, well, everybody should know about it because it's not very safe. The same thing yogis one day said, that this knowledge should not be given to the ignorant and unprepared, because they might misuse this knowledge. You see, there is a parallelism, as I pointed out only two evenings back. So here, the spirit that is at work is a reality, and the opposition here is of an assumption of involution by the cosmic spirit to us. And it is the opposite movement of evolution which we experience now within ourselves. And this opposite movement of evolution has not come to its full point, because it must reach the full perfection of the spirit in matter. In material level, on earth, that is to say, the earth consciousness that is here realized must harbor, must manifest, must bring down in the human mold that perfection which is involved in the inconscience of matter. This is really the fulfillment of man. Man's fulfillment is not to create an ideal world conceived by him with his intellectual idealism, or merely reach an ethical outlook in which man will be, you can say, a well-behaved animal, so to say. He will have to realize fundamentally the essential divinity and manifest that divinity in his mind, in his life, in his dealing, in his collective life, in his processes of life. Life has to become a mold for manifestation of that. That is why renouncing of life cannot become a solution for man's problem. You see, pulling out the man and throwing him into nirvana will not solve the problem. Problem will be solved only when man rises to that consciousness where harmony, knowledge and will are completely in agreement, so to say, without any opposition to each other. Then he will be able to bring it down into life. Then life will become a mold for manifesting of a fundamental peace, a calm, a harmony, a knowledge, and a mutuality in which conflict will not be the law, but a mutual giving and taking of delight and love will be the law of governing life, law governing life, you see. At that time, life will not become, dry and matter of fact, so dull that one doesn't like to live. Probably the present highest acme of enjoyment or delight that man knows is nothing compared to that delight which he will get if he can embody even a part of that particle of that delight which can come down and govern life. You see, that what he knows is nothing to what can be. And man thinks that if he gives up what he has, he will perhaps be deprived even of the little that he has. This is a very illogical fear, because man has very little to lose except his ignorance. In the bargain, what he has to lose is only, you see, when a man is faced with the problem of surrender, I know some people have to say, oh, but if I give up everything, what will remain to me? How will, and so on. He doesn't know that what he has to give up is his littleness, his egoism, his little desires, his ambition, his selfishness, his greed. It is nothing worth, yes, not a precious treasure to preserve. You see, after all, if that is given up, something better can take place. But there is a sane fear in the mind of man who is physically extroverted. He always thinks, oh, if I lost all this, these are not so precious as to be preserved for all eternity. After all, there is nothing wonderful about it. It's common to everybody. You see, and what is it there? What is there to make us feel as if it was something for which we should fight to the last ditch? After all, it's something that can be very easily given up. If a wider consciousness, a purer state of consciousness can be even attempted, I say. Well, if somebody great like Aurobindo gives a certainty, it's quite another matter. But even if certainty is not given, we can take a experimental leap ourselves. After all, what do we stand to lose except the littleness of man, you see? Well, the modern culture has sounded this possibility of nature and come to great conclusion, and that the difficulty has been created by the complication which modern life subjects us all to this complication. It has a strong tendency toward materialism, denial of any higher truth, that is one. Secondly, it has created a intellect which is all the time extrovert, all the time going out, all the time going out. And thirdly, it creates all the time centering itself on life, you see. I'm roughly giving you the characteristic of our culture today everywhere. It's not only here. Don't think that it's only in America. It's all over the world. All over the world, the steamroller is simply rolling. You see, steamroller is crushing everything out. There is that tendency to whether what is the use of anything. You see, a tendency to materialism and agnosticism, a sort of all the time extrovert outlook, all the time looking out. And thirdly, it is a tendency in which whole attention is tended to life, as if there was no greater element in man's constitution than his vital being, his life force. Man is an intellect, man is a conscience, man is a spirit. All that is put into the background. How to satisfy life, how to make life more comfortable, more complex, how to supply more, means of comfort and make life, is it a pampering of life all the time, so to say? It comes to that practically. Now, this is a disadvantage, and this is a shortcoming which makes emergence of anything higher very difficult. One great defect of this is we are glad that it adds to man's comfort or makes life more comfortable or removes poverty and ignorance and evil and difficulties of life and sickness and so on. It's quite good. But the great difficulty it creates is that it makes the emergence of any spiritual element more difficult. People are prone not to accept any higher truth because, oh, well, this is quite enough. It is too late when they discover it is not enough. The discovery is made by many people, I mean by thousands. But when they discover there is no remedy out of it, you see, the culture has not kept values alive in society and collective life. Higher values should be always kept alive and put higher than material values, because then only The man will look up to those things as practicable, as desirable, as necessary for life. As food is necessary, one must think honesty is necessary. Rising to a higher consciousness is necessary. He should feel. Well, the culture, the mold of cultures now created is such that man doesn't feel. On the contrary, he feels what's the use. And that this complexity of culture and this over attention to life and its comforts, total extroversion of human mind, and all the time busy with all the time, as that our friend put it, Harrington has put in that pamphlet, that he's so busy getting at the means of life that he has forgotten to live. How to live? He is busy with how to live. Electricity, this, that, and 24 hours he's doing. Now, he has forgotten to live altogether. He's procuring means of life all the time. Means of life, take him up to here, there is no chance afterwards for him to live. This difficulty, that it creates a great bar to the awakening of man to his highest possibilities, to his higher life, to his spirit. Well, this in one sense seems like a disadvantage. But Sri Aurobindo in one of his writings says that this is a passing episode. This is not a permanent thing that has come to mankind. This is a passing condition. And he even goes further and says that it is a necessary condition. Because in the past, all spiritual effort was inclined to deny matter, to refuse life. You see, renounce. Matter is obstacle. Well, here comes a culture which insists on matter, and matter is the only reality. So spirituality will have now to take count of matter as a necessary term for its working upon matter. It will have to admit matter as a necessary element in its perfection. This is in one sense a contribution, even by opposition, of the modern culture to spiritual life, that it brings into prominence the importance of matter and of life, both. The whole culture is, centered around life. So any spiritual effort that wants to be available to man or to raise man will have to take count of life. It insists on matter. So that any spirituality that now comes on the field will have to contend with matter as a reality, which it is. Matter will have to be taken up into a scheme of perfection, so that body, the material life of man, will have to be admitted as fields in which a possible perfection or spiritual perfection can manifest itself. Matter is not to be denied. Matter is not to be, renounced. Matter is to be admitted and transformed. Well, there, the transformation of material life of man, or transformation of the vital life of man, have been, so to say, brought prominently into the problem of spiritual attainment of man. This is one great advantage and contribution which this culture, with all its shortcomings, has made to spiritual growth. Because there is a truth of material existence, you cannot deny, because matter is, after all, a term of the spirit. It's a form of the spirit, you can say. It's a mold of the spirit, it's a mask of the spirit, but it is spirit with a negative sign. It is as it were an indivisible, reality was at work. The one end of it appeared like spirit. At the other end, when you look at it, it appears like matter or thin conscience. You see, idea generally is that here is matter, here is spirit. It is in fact an indivisible reality. One end of it appears to human mind as spirit. The other end of it appears to the human mind as matter. But really speaking, as an indivisible reality with a hierarchy of planes, hierarchy of different vibrations, creating different worlds at work. It is not as it were it was absolutely one unconnected with the other. It is not as if two worlds were in opposition and the only solution was to escape from one to the other, deny the one, or mount or ascend into the other and refuse to do anything with one of them. That is not the solution. Now, by science, it has only, you see, the difficulty in the process of man trying to sound the possibility in occult powers of matter or life or of mind is that he does it with his desire soul and with his ambition. People go into science with an ambition. You see, they try to use occult powers as profession. Now that, because there brings in the human egoistic element into play, and whatever great discoveries are made are subjected to a falsification subsequently. The discovery has nothing wrong in it, but the utility or utilization of it becomes falsified because man tries to use it in his rajasic way, as I told you the other day, by subject to his desire and his ambition, and makes it a profession out of it and makes a career or something. It is the sounding of possibilities of nature is not something fundamentally bad. It is necessary for increase of the field of knowledge of man. Now, one point on which I want to bring your attention is that all this, when it is thought about, everyone thinks how to deal with this problem, what to do. This culture is there, this extroversion is there, utilization of matter and increase in the centricity of life and economy is there. What is to be done? Well, the first remedy which Aurobindo suggests is that this is a process of growth from within outwards. Therefore, the remedy is inside and not outside. No outer movement will be able to change the structure to what it should be. No law, no social legislation, no political legislation, no public institution or constitution merely will bring about this change, because all that will be driving from outside in, and that will not create what is required inside. So the process is from inside out. And it will not be as it were the whole of mankind will be covered by this. One is disappointed very often in this solution when he says that all must do. Oh, everybody is not doing. This is a wrong thing. This is a false outlook. The real work to be attempted is inside out. And when one has attempted, you see, if you look at it even in a more general way, it is a far more fundamental problem than we normally are accustomed to think about it. What is the supramental yoga or integral yoga trying to do? Trying to bring in a new element in evolution, is it not? Really speaking, trying to change the whole life into working off a new element in evolution. It would be as it were if the animal kingdom was to change into the mental or human kingdom, how much revolutionary change would be necessary. So if you see, if the man looks back upon now on the animal and sees how far it is behind him, though animal is intelligent and all all the elements of man's perfection are there perhaps inside in his mind, but they are not developed. And as somebody put it, that if you tell a monkey that out of this species Einstein can flower forth, he would refuse to believe that possibility. He would say no, by no means. You see, this is so far removed. Well, what we are trying to do is a world of ignorance, suffering, conflict, evil, difficulties, dualities, and an original, dynamic, divine reality at work. We are trying to bring into dynamic operation that original, divine, dynamic truth consciousness. We are banking upon bringing into life the highest divine dynamics. We don't depend upon our effort entirely, you see. And in that you cannot say everybody will. No, it is a process in which the whole cosmic ignorance will be made to face the supreme power of truth, for which we only will have aspiration, rejection and surrender. You understand? We are not doing it. This is a very deep and profound process, not to be attempted on mass scale first. It is always to be done from within outwards, and within outwards is a process which can be only taken up by few people who feel the need, who feel the aspiration, who feel the seeking. And they must realize that this is very fundamental to man's growth. This is not merely a temporary change. This is a change of consciousness. This is a yoga, in fact, of nature transformation. This is not a yoga of only divine attainment. No, yes, divine attainment with a view to nature transformation. And in the process of nature transformation, we do not depend upon mind or idealism or ethics or morality, or we depend upon the action of a divine power, a dynamic divine force which is responsible for maintaining the existence of the cosmos. It is that which is and which is here, which it has become. We invoke it into dynamic movement in our life. When we try to make out a process from within outwards and try to evoke that in us, what we are trying to do is to bring into the process of life's evolution a new element. It had intermittent action now and then when great founders of religion came and brought some light. Again it went. Again they brought. Again it went, isn't it? Now we are trying to make an effort to make it a permanent part of life if it is possible. It will depend on two factors: our sincerity of aspiration and capacity to surrender to it, and its operation on life. It is a double process. It's not doesn't depend on man only. It depends on the power, and it is that which is pressing for manifestation which makes all the discomfort and the churning of life which is at work. It is that which is pressing. Two things are at work, and we have to see that we are not only depending upon how many people now are following, who knows. That is not the way to look at this problem. Look at this problem in its ultimate dimensions. Then you see that it is not a question of one man doing one thing or one man attaining a truth. It's a question of changing the whole process of universal nature which has gone up till now. And it is possible and conceivable because a dynamic divine reality is at work and can be made dynamic and active in our lives. It is on active faith in this reality that the whole nature-changing yoga is founded. It is evolutionary yoga in that sense. Evolutionary in the sense that it accepts the evolution up till now and posits the possibility of going beyond evolution attained in the future by bringing into active movement in life a greater truth than mind, greater truth than human intelligence. Now we are banking upon, therefore, a supreme power which is at work, a next plane of consciousness, truth consciousness, which wants to manifest here, a consciousness full of harmony which wants to manifest here, a consciousness in which peace is self-existent. It is that which wants to manifest here, and that makes us aspire for peace and want peace here. You see, it is as it were peace was trying to press and come down into life. We have only to open. How will it? That is why the second point that I wanted to bring to your notice was there are no set forms for this yoga. You cannot bind it down to say, unless you go to a temple, you will not be able to do this yoga. Unless you have a tilak here, or unless you put on a certain uniform, you cannot do this yoga. There's not that. It will have to adapt. It is a multiple yoga. It's a cosmic yoga in that sense. To every individual and to every group, it will have to give its own leading. And who will give the leading? Not mind. That is why it is not always good to make the construction of what it will be with our mind. Best is to open out to that power and allow it to give the form that is necessary. It will give the leading. Man has got this idea that unless he does something, nothing can be done. You see, unless he meddles. Now, in all fields of life, one does not start with assured intellectual knowledge. One always starts with an intuitive faith. When a scientist starts the analysis of water, why does he want to analyze water? He thinks that he must find out the truth of water. Water as it is not what it appears to be, but there must be a constitution of water to be found out. Now this nobody has proved to him. He is having an intuition that matter is a constitution, isn't it? One always acts on an intuition. All sciences are founded fundamentally on an intuition, not assured knowledge. Assured knowledge follows. One begins with an intuition, I want to know the truth, but you assume that there is a truth. Truth is not given, it's a thing that rises within, isn't it? After all, one works with an intuition. Well, here this process of acceptance of this truth and leaving the working out of the form to the leading of a higher power would give a plastic form, would not give a rigid mental mind is always, something that wants to make a very rigid rule. It is what is called regimentation is the law. With mind, everybody must be like that, you see. That is why communism fails, you see, with some truth which is behind it, but it always fails because it is regimentation. Everybody must, and then everybody does not. Somehow or other, everybody is so made that he doesn't enjoy being regimented. And the society, if it is perfect, it must be like this. Well, society says it can't be like that. Each is an individual seeking fulfillment. How is regimentation possible? Mind gives a form which is very rigid, unplastic. Whereas here, the leading requires all forms of life will have to be admitted into the working of this higher power. Well, then forms will go on differing, changing, necessity will be changing, and every time some new thing will be rising. Some will be sitting only for meditation for some time, another man will be only working for all the time, a third man will be doing only art, a fourth man will be doing some scientific work or running a factory on the basis of this working. You never know what form it will take. You can never dictate a form to this practice, you see. The form can be multiple, various and infinitely varied. So that is one idea which one has to keep in mind, that evolution of the form of this, the fundamental basis is from inside out. That is fixed. There is no exception to that. It must be a movement from within outwards. How the outward movement will formulate itself into an individual's life or a collective life has to be found out, has to be left to working out, to the leading of the inner light as it grows. You accept, then go on changing. That is taken up as a chance for growth. You see, life is not, you don't say, all right, let us create a fixed mold like that. You see, instead of that, you leave it plastic and begin an experiment. And in that experiment, you find, you will find that outer dealing with man is not only external, it's dealing with psychology. The moment you admit the higher working in life, the great discovery you make is that you are not mechanically dealing with people, but we are dealing with psychology. And then what we have to do is not to change the outer life, but change ourselves. Life can be a very great teacher. Every corner and every angularity of man will be thoroughly exposed when he begins this yoga. I can tell you from what I know. You see, that it is not merely, you sit down for half an hour, meditate, and then everybody is happy, all God is happy there, and all men are quite nice, and so on. It's not that. It is a thing which, when you say no, the whole of life will become a mold for reaching it and keep bringing it into life. All right, then, when you make an effort, you find, I don't think I agree with that man's idea. All right, you don't agree. Then say, then I want to work with him. Well, then, that's exactly what shouldn't happen. That is exactly what shouldn't happen. You see, you say that, yes, I agree with him, and as far as I agree, I'll work with him. And if I have some ego, hill or rock on which I am standing, well, I like to give it up first. That is the first change that I must bring within myself. I have no right to take for granted that all my angularities are perfect. Yes, that will necessitate an inner change of attitude, change in which you look up to the inner guidance and say that the truth that I want to see, it must make me change my nature. Why should I persist in being what I am and remaining as I am? And how do we take for granted that the other people also will remain what they are for all time? They are also liable to change. And we must give ourselves a chance to change, others people also a chance to change. It is when one makes this inner effort that one discovers many possibilities and many things which require a change in his life. And the change is effected not by mind or morality or ethics, but by bringing into movement the higher power, leaving the work to be done by the higher power. And then the discovery is made that it is active, it can change, it can obliterate difficulties, if see round of angularities and change the whole of constitution of nature. Well, this is nature changing yoga. Yoga in which one is required to deal with nature, transform his nature from present egocentric and desire-driven being into a being that seeks the light, and the will is only to reach the light, and when the light is reached, to bring it down into life and manifest it. That is the main, the inspiring motive, so to say. That is the main purpose. So, change of nature by realizing a divine reality, a divine potentiality which each one is, that is the goal. And in that, we are trying to make an effort to take a new step in evolution. Therefore, we cannot expect a large person to participate in it. It's a few really sincere people called to this task, seeking that reality, that can make an effort. And it is that which is really success. Success is not spreading out to people, but success is bringing it into life. Success is not all people saying, yes, it is good, yes, it is nice, it is correct, it is logical, it is rational. That would amount to very little. That would only make an atmosphere possible for it, really speaking. What does an intellectual man succeed in doing? Making out a prima facie case for some truth. He says this is possible, and how the logic of it he gives. That's all, but it doesn't change life. But when a man has actually made an effort to change the psychology of his life, well, he has really made a real change in the evolutionary process and given a chance to himself and to the higher power to come down and create a new mode of life. It is as it were, we are trying to a new creation, so to say, a new creation into existence without changing anything, without destroying anything. You see, it's a revolution which will not require any outer change. It's a revolution where factors will stand as they are. And suddenly, the pressure and the tension will disappear. They will produce. Nobody will gain anything out of it. You see, they will go on producing and people will be happily going there because they will not go like slaves. That is the thing to be attempted. Nothing externally will change, and yet everything will be so revolutionary change that you will see it is not the same old world, it's a new world. Well, that is the great change and the miracle, if I can call it, for which we are standing, not founding our faith in ourselves only, but founding ourselves in the light that is coming and that has already touched the earth consciousness. It is already at work, and it is trying to, seek molds and then adapt itself to the conditions for man's fulfillment here and for its manifestation here. It is interested in man because man is a field for its expression, for its growth and for its manifestation. Man is interested in it because he feels his fulfillment in it. So it is mutual between the divine and man, you see. And if even a few individuals succeed in making this start, it will be the start of creating a new world. And well, we are in the present age called upon to make that tremendous effort. And I think with the divine grace we may succeed.
What you were discussing this morning seems in a way similar to the Christian prayer, thy will be done, will of a higher power on earth, as it is in heaven, meaning the higher consciousness. Seems, again, to sound this note.
Yes, it is in one sense an advance in the sense that that is only an aspiration.
Yes.
Now you have a full picture. The nature of the will, for instance, is not clear. What is the nature of the supreme will? How will it apply to collective life? How will it solve political problems? How will it guide a man who is a poet? Yes, so you see, and then in doing it, the whole question of transformation of nature is involved. See, the Upanishad said, for instance, long ago, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. The nature of the ultimate reality is truth, knowledge, and infinity. Ishavasya Vidam Sarvam, all this is for habitation by the Lord. It was written at least 3,000 years before. All this is for habitation by the Lord. Now, how is it to become the habitation? Yes, that is the problem. And then it involves a whole change of human nature. So that how is he first to reach the Supreme? It will bring in the idea of the nature of the Supreme Consciousness. Lord, for instance, when you say Lord, do you imply a static being or a dynamic being? Do you imply an impersonality or a state of consciousness only? You see? Yes, that has to be tackled. You see, those problems have been now clarified to the human mind. I don't say that reality is changed. Reality is not changed. But man's attitude towards it now has become more detailed and more understanding has been added to it, that the divine is not extra cosmic, for instance. Even in Christian religion, as far as I know, though I don't know whether it is all true, but as far as I know, the idea is of an extra cosmic God in some schools at any rate. That God is not immanent, that He has made this world and He is separate. Now that is not the correct conception of the divine. The conception of the divine is an omnipotence, omniscience and omnipresence. Omnipotent, omniscience and omnipresence, presence everywhere. In that case, He is present in each one. Each one is potentially divine. That is why transformation is possible. To awaken that divinity is there already. You see, so that you see it is that is why I always was quite shy of saying all have said the same thing. I always I know that fundamentally there is a great truth at work. Spiritual truth is one, human difficulty is another. Two realities are at work, and many people have tried to give solution from one angle, emphasizing one side of the reality, emphasizing one way of solving the problem. But if one sees the whole total problem in its fullness, then I should say that Sri Aurobindo's is the only light which gives applicability and relevance to modern life. That he has given a total conception of the divine, the steps by which you reach it from mind, from heart, one by one psychological steps, how they act and react upon human psychology, then how to reconstitute life on the basis of the spirit. All the details of this have been given not even by Upanishads, not even by Veda. See, in the Veda, truth is given that the truth is like the sun, and the sun must be brought down on earth. This is an image from the Veda I am telling you. The Rishi says we pray to open ourselves to the sun, and we want to bring down the sun on earth. Now this is symbolic way, that we want to bring down the truth, the self-existent knowledge into life. And we want to make life here a place where the sun can manifest, means the divine light can manifest here. But the steps between the sun and the human mind, it is Sri Aurobindo who for the first time put intellectual mind, 3 stages of intellectual mind. That will take us months, you see, that has taken me 14 years. You see, the mind itself has got a material mind which is only subject to brain, then a practical mind, pragmatic mind, idealistic mind, and pure reasoning mind. Then that mind, when you finish the realm of the pure mind, then you go to higher mind, illumined mind, intuitive mind, overmind, then supermind. Now these are practical stages to be real. Now you say these are for us words, but to any man who is in Africa today, all the 26 atom particles also are words. But you know that they are realities. They are not words, they are experiences organized for man. When man will try this experiment, he will find that they are real. Man has to make an experiment and say, and the relation of that to man. It's not merely assent. When those levels of consciousness activate themselves in man's life, what will happen? What is the relation between mind and higher mind, between life and intuitive mind, between the spiritual consciousness and the human consciousness, and how the human consciousness will undergo a change if it allows the higher consciousness to work? A process of slow transformation, not in one bound. Triple transformation, psychic being first in front, the inmost soul leading the man, then the universal consciousness leading him, and the supreme consciousness leading him. So the three steps of transformation: psychicization, universalization, and supramentalization. Transformation is not done at one bound. So that it is a tremendous advance on what was done in the... It is not therefore to say that people in the past did not do any fundamental service to spirituality. The present stands always on the past. The whole game of the past is with us. What Buddha did, Lord Buddha did, or Christ did, or Krishna did, is with us. It is on that we stand. We have no standing ground if we reject what they did. You see? Yeah, understand my viewpoint is not that I am rejecting the great contribution of the past, because we stand on it. But that this is something which is very relevant to human life today. To apply it to life today, why should you not take advantage of something which can be at once immediately useful for us, you see? Rather than try to bring something in which there are so many questions which are not even, existent. The complexity of social life was not present at the time of Gautam Buddha or Veda or Christianity. When Christianity, complexity of life was not there. So all those things have been a special contribution of Sri Aurobindo, and therefore, personally, I believe that to the modern life, his outlook and his solution are the most relevant solution of man if he wants to try spirituality. He won't be able to try other things. He can do it as an individual effort. Anybody is free. In India, hundreds of people are orthodox and they have some attainment and they do something. But it does not solve the problem fundamentally. Their life is not changed. That I will say anytime. They are religious people. Their life does not change. Life is that what it is, and obstinately what it is, subject to desire and ego and nothing else. That, you see, and unless that goes, the crux of the matter is not tackled. Unless that is tackled somewhere, we are not, come to grips with the problem.
And this experiment has been tried.
Yes, I wouldn't have dared to talk about it, but somebody having tried it at some place in Pondicherry, I wouldn't even conceive it possible, I tell you frankly. Alone, I wouldn't have thought that this could be done. I wouldn't dream of thinking, because it's tremendous. It is, you see, we are trying to solve the whole problem of human ignorance, and then bringing in a possible transformation in life. That unless some small model is put, you wouldn't even think of talking. People would say that this is all good ideal, but where? But here some sample and some small unit is there where you can see, yes, experimental unit is there. You try and see whether it is working. It is working. It's not perfect, but it is working. So it could be done. You see, what you do when you do something new, bring a new vision of life or new way of life is not merely to preach it and say it is to be, a model has to be created. A small model, simple. And you say it like this. There, you see, you go, we are only 11 when we began the yoga. I was 5th when I joined Pondicherry. And second year we were only 11. Now there are 1400. And it is not on advertisement that it has worked. People came. I wrote letter and went. Dr. Indrasen wrote letter and said, I want to come. So that it is not as it were by, telling people as I am telling. Yes, it is they sought and they came. So that it is possible in human life to find people who seek sincerely. And for somebody who has found, the people who seek, do gather, come together. And if they come together, then the problem is how to continue the pursuit of the ideal together. Pursue the idea individually is possible, but can't do it together means solve each one's problem, you see. Together is not a walk on a in a macadamized road. It is a difficult task.
Think only a higher power.
Yeah, that's it. That's why I wrote to Harrington. I wrote to him. To me, Pondicherry is a standing miracle. You see, to keep a family of 10 people together, which doesn't easily happen nowadays, is a job. Supposing you are old-fashioned and keep the family of 10 together, it is a job. For one who manages family knows it. In India, we have a joint family system. You see, means cousins remain together in one house. And I have seen a house of my friend where 42 people dined at one table, one kitchen. 42. And one old dame was in charge. And such an ideal of womanhood I had not seen, I tell you. Nothing from children of 5 or 10, her grandchildren, to her eldest son, 52, who was station master. Each one is a different time of meals, and she saw to it that each one got it. Somebody goes at 9:30, and somebody goes early morning, and somebody requires at 2 o'clock, and somebody comes from the office. She is sitting quiet, sitting in the worship house from 4 to 6, she does her worship. Then she sits in one place and says, so and so, has he not taken his meals? What has happened to him? Why he is not come? Why she is not come? Oh.
Quite a different system.
42 people. Now that is so difficult. Now it is broken. She's gone and the house is not there. So that one that kept the whole thing together. After she went, well, it couldn't hold together. Well, somebody holds it together. But to keep 1,400 people together, it's not human. That's all I can say. All I can say is not human. I wrote to Harrington. I've written to him.
Yes.
But to me, it's a standing miracle.
Purani is referring to Dr. Harrington of the Community Church in New York.